type of interview today.
Nice. Yeah, love it. It's definitely, but where are you
What's
calling
that?
from?
I am out of Indianapolis, Indiana. How about yourself?
Oh, we're out in New York. We're headquarters in Manhattan.
Okay, very nice. Cool.
Cool. Well, excited to have the conversation, Lindo. Just as a brief introduction, I'm Dan. I'm on the growth team here at Ramp. I've been here for about 2 years. Before this, I actually worked at Amex, where I was working with the corporate card program over there. And then before that, in accounting for a little while, for a VC here in New York. So, have some notes from Annie, my colleague, who is reaching out to you, and excited to see if Ramp could be a good fit for you moving forward. And if not, I'm also happy to part ways as friends. How does that sound?
Sounds good, man.
Cool. Well, I had a couple notes here. Know that you've tried Divi in the past, probably very familiar with the space. I also saw that you were, congratulations on 2023 CFO of the Year. I saw that as well. So I guess when you're thinking about the technology there, um, how has the experience been? I know there was some problems with Divi and whatnot, and if there was anything in particular that got you interested, I'll be sure to double tap into it.
Yeah, I think for me, before we kind of dive into a little bit about what your guys' product is and how you guys might be able to solve some of those challenges. So, we still use Divi.
Okay.
We rolled that out with the hopes that it would really solve the expense reporting problem. We don't have a ton of issues with expense reporting, but it's enough to be annoying. It's enough to where, we're spending time on things that we really shouldn't be spending our time on. And we were looking for a solution backed by technology that would kind of just really streamline that entire process. And Divi didn't really seem to do that. I think functionality wise, for me, I'm a big tech user, so it made
Yeah.
sense for me. It was super easy, super clean for me to use. But I really think it was trying to, I mean, it basically forces the user to put in expense reports on an application. And I would think, between you and me, kind of like in our generation, we're a little bit younger, pretty easy thing to
Yeah.
do. Like, I mean, everyone uses apps all the time, right? But for
Yep.
some reason, it was just a barrier to where everyone saw it as a burden. Like they didn't want to take the time to do it. So getting the adoption was very hard. So I think what initially attracted me to Ramp in this conversation was more around some of the things you guys have implemented to solve that, as far as like text message receipts and things like that, making it really user friendly to where it doesn't feel like they're going out of their way to do expense reporting. And then Divi also lacked the ability to integrate with QuickBooks seamlessly.
Yeah.
They have a QuickBooks integration, but it doesn't work very well. So interested in exploring that today. So maybe you can give us a little bit of background about your
Yeah.
guys' product for anyone watching and seeing what
Yeah.
you guys can do to help solve some of those problems for us.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big theme that I've heard a lot with not only Divi, just a lot of the folks out there is that um, you know, a lot of times it's just difficult and people don't want to do it. And making it as seamless as possible is pretty much the only solve as to getting receipts in a timely fashion. So that's definitely something we can do around, text message, even grabbing receipts automatically from inboxes like their Gmail or Outlook through those integrations. Um, so those are all things that Ramp can do. And then on the accounts payable side, I'm not sure if you're using bill.com as well for your AP. What is the system there for paying invoices with ACH, check, or
We
wire?
don't have a ton of AP. If I think about our trucking company, a lot of times we're just handling one-off stuff. We have used Bill.com for freight brokerage before. We
Yeah.
actually decided to partner with Routable. I don't know if you've heard of them. So they're more of an API solution where
Okay.
we've taken their technology, their tech stack, and we've integrated that into our proprietary TMS. So we actually do all of our vendor payments out of our TMS system. So it's like a one-stop shop, really seamless. because for our freight brokerage, we have a high volume payable processing. So we don't really have a need for using Bill.com. But if there's some sort of integration that you guys have, I mean, that we always have one-off bills that we need to pay. I don't
Yeah.
think we're really, because we have a lot of one-off bills, we're not really effectively managing it because it's pretty rare. We have most of our stuff on auto pay. So a lot of the like service-based businesses, sometimes we forget about paying those timely. Not that we, are intentionally doing that, but it's because it's
Right.
like, oh, because we're not used to having that in our workflow and our management because we don't have a ton. We'll have stuff like CPA bills or, attorney bills every now and then, that kind of stuff where we have to manually one-off pay.
Yeah. And the TMS is that truck management system,
Transportation management
transportation
system.
management
Yeah.
system. What kind of things like what when that integration with route? I mean, obviously, ideally ramp, you know, I'd say 60% of our clients use the full thing. Ramp, card, reimbursement, expense management, AP procurement, all in one, integrating directly with QuickBooks. That's, for the system consolidation, it could be something that you look at down the line, for example, where, not sure if routable, is it more approval based, or what exactly did you build there?
Yeah, I mean, it can't get more integrated than what, so that includes both revenue and expenses. So the expense side would be bills essentially that we're paying to carriers. So our operations team will build out an order. They're going to book the order and they're going to dispatch it to a trucking company, who's the carrier that's going to move the freight. And that's ultimately either we're going to pay the carrier directly or the carrier may be working with a factoring company and we may pay the factoring company directly. And in that case, when the bill becomes due, we just click a button. It doesn't get easier than that. It's all
Okay, got
integrated into our system, so like we're not touching that whatsoever.
So it's
We
really the
spend a lot of
expense
time on
side.
that.
Yeah,
What's that?
it's really the expense side that there's some issues there. And people,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even on our truck, we have some other companies. I mean, we have real estate companies too. I mean, even, bill payments on that. I'm not saying that there's not a need, but like for our main volume of bill payments that resides with our brokerage, which we've already automated and solved that challenge.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess like how many cards do you have out there, and are they coding things as well, or is it just for seats that
We're
you're
not really actively manage or using Divvy at all. I
okay.
mean, we probably have three cards. No one's coding anything. We just kind of we rolled it out. Didn't really have a great adoption rate. And honestly, the volume wasn't high enough for me to really fight a battle with people. Um,
So
so
they're
I
doing
mean, it's
reimbursements instead?
what's that?
So are they resulting to using their personal cards, or what are they doing instead of Divvy?
Well, as far as what we use, I mean, we usually use our credit card spend for paying vendors. So, I mean, it's not like employees needing expense reimbursements. We do have some of that. We have like truck drivers at our trucking company, like will do stuff out of pocket sometimes. I don't know if you're familiar with the trucking company, but com checks, they get com checks from Comdata a lot. We have another platform that we use that helps solve that challenge. So that's probably not expense reimbursement is probably not a big deal for us to address.
Okay. But I guess there's three cards, and the reason why you weren't able to roll it out is because people just didn't really want to use it, right? I'm just trying to figure out if there's a
Yeah, I
way.
think it's really the barrier
Yeah.
of adding things to their plate. They kind of view it as like, okay, well, you're adding bookkeeping to my plate. And to be fair, they're not accountants, right? We're not expecting them to go in there and classify um, the right parts category to whatever they're spending. And I think something that can be rolled out that is very seamless to them as far as like text message or, hey, let me take a snapshot of the receipt, send an email or text or whatever. And that can come into the system. And we have some programmatic rules that can automatically assign that to a GL code in our financials that ultimately, would be the win to me and remove the user from having to go in because that's what Divvy was doing is like having them go in and say, okay, was this maintenance? Was this parts? Was this supplies? And really just try to select from 1,000 different accounts and it can be very overwhelming if you don't know what to do. And then they're questioning like, oh, I don't want to select the wrong account, and then get in
Right.
trouble. So those were some of the challenges that we had in rolling that out.
Yeah, sorry, just taking some notes here. You mentioned earlier on in the call that the QuickBooks integration was not working too well. Talk to me a little bit about that. Was it the sync error, just the way I know they push journal entries sometimes. We have a pretty unique QuickBooks integration, so um,
Yeah, it was really a real manual process. I think they may have done some up. Honestly, I'm not that engaged into Divi anymore, so I just haven't paid attention. They probably have done some upgrades recently, but I know for the longest time it was a export out of Divi and upload into QuickBooks. And to me, that's not an integration. That's just being lazy. I've built integrations for QuickBooks, like for our proprietary TMS. So like I'm very familiar with the API in QuickBooks,
okay.
almost like the back of my hand. So like I know the work involved with it. And it just frustrated me to see their quote unquote integration of what they had. So we just never used it. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping you guys have something better.
we absolutely do. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why companies consistently choose Ramp over Bill.com and Divvy is better integrations, more seamless process for receipts, more automation, and really just more product, velocity. I think one of the things that, especially, as you're saying, Window, like you've built integrations, you're a tech forward person. That's really what Ramp specializes in. It's really just building, and building, a product that's easy to use. You might not use all facets of the product, right? Maybe reimbursement you keep on the system that you're using. You still continue to use Routable, but I do want to show you the full breadth of Ramp because we do all of those things. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I'd love maybe just give me an overview of like what is ramp
yeah,
for anyone that doesn't know what is ramp, and then
yeah.
how you guys can solve some of those challenges that I mentioned.
So Ramp is, and let me pull something up here. So Ramp really, when you're thinking about Ramp, is a spend management solution. We started off as pretty much a corporate card, with some controls. Our founders came from Cap One. They sold their first business into Capital One, ran the corporate card program over there, and saw that there was a need for corporate cards that actually help companies save less. I think one of the things that is a little bit counterintuitive in this market is that a lot of companies, corporate cards, especially with my Amex background, they're trying to get you to spend more. You spend in this certain category, you get points back, you hit certain thresholds and tiers. There's nothing around expense management. It's really hard to see transactions. There's no real-time visibility. So what Ramp really came into the market is to challenge that entire, value proposition by introducing a corporate card that's smart enough to do your accounting for you, automate a lot of the receipt capture and bookkeeping, and then ultimately be a product that is so easy and delightful to use that people end up spending less time and far, far less time. I'd say the average client over, and Forrester did an independent third party study that over 3 years, the average company sees about a 503% return on investment from using Ramp. If you look us up online, we've been on a couple of lists this year. FinTech 50 on Forbes. We were the only expense management company to make that list. But really, my point in saying that is that we work with a lot of different customers, about 30,000 customers. I came here about 2 years ago, and we were half the size that we are now. So we're growing quite quickly, and there's a lot of different industries that use us. Shopify um, uses us, and Glossier, Airbnb, SpaceX, Twitter, companies in different industries, construction one. So really, I'd say every industry benefits from using Ramp. There's not one particular ICP or fit for us. The basis of Ramp is we are a Visa signature business card. So we have virtual and physical cards. they're tied directly with the expense management process, whether that's receipt capture, um, personal reimbursements can also flow through the platform, and then ultimately AP. So if you're looking at the market, this is what I pretty much see every single day is that somebody will be using a corporate card, they'll add on another expense management procedure or product like Concur or Expensify. And then when ultimately they want to scale and automate their accounts payable, they'll go ahead and buy one of these. With Ramp, we believe that there's no need for these three separate systems if you can have it all in one. So with Ramp, we can be the corporate card. We do a flat 1% cash back on everything you spend, regardless of what you spend. Expense and travel management are together, coupled with the software. So when someone swipes their card, they get a text message telling them to take a picture of the receipt. That's pretty much it. It works in every industry, and I'll show you how that works. And then ultimately procurement and AP. So we can even run a procurement process, procure to pay, purchase requests, having them go through approvals, and then ultimately accounts payable. We can pay bills, pay our vendors with ACH, check, wire. We can manage vendors as well. So we can reach out to vendors for W-9s, payment information, contract start and end dates. So these are all things that we can do within the Ramp platform. It's a centralized ecosystem for all things spending.
Okay.
Um, Ultimately, with Ramp, there's a couple of other things that we can do across our integrations. For example, integrating with email to pull in e-receipts or your Lyft, your Ubers, your Amazon business, or your business tools, your Slack, Teams, whatever you might use for communications. These integrations come natively out of the box, and it is a true API in the sense that, you click sync and it truly does sync as a card expense with all the coding and receipts that flow over. And I'll show you what that looks like. But as you can see, QBO is one of our big four accounting ERPs that we integrate with.
And so what would that look like? Would it be like if I think about QuickBooks and some of the automation and recurring
Yeah.
rules that they have, they have a pretty robust setup to where you can customize a lot of it in respect of, if you know what the vendor or the line item description is on the charge, and that's a reoccurring thing that you see come through all the time, you can automatically assign that and say, hey, when this charge comes through from Ramp, we want to classify it as our credit card payment bill or whatever. If this card comes from Zoom, this is classified as our, meeting subscription expense, that kind of
Not
stuff.
only, yeah, those rules we can set up in 2 seconds within Ramp. So you can code not only that, but we can also do more advanced coding rules. Like the AI will pick up on, so if you code something to a project multiple times, it'll suggest the project. So even non-merchant related data, because ultimately, Mundo, we use like if you spend on Zoom and you have the rule set up Zoom to software, it'll do it automatically as long as you set up that rule. And our team works with your team to set up those rules. So that's going to be pretty easy. The thing that's going to be also, pretty helpful is once we do set up all of those rules, we can zoom it out to the category and even say, okay, airlines related expense goes into travel. So that way you're not coding merchant, but everything from that category from Visa that we detect on the Ramp corporate card will be mapped over. And it's a true sync. So it syncs every transaction. Let me actually, just to give
Yeah,
you
so tell me about that sync. So the way I typically see, and I don't know if you guys have a way to solve this, it probably don't, but figured I'd ask. Typically when I see transactions sync, and even from our own system that I built, it will sync from, let's say, Ramp into QuickBooks, and maybe it'll come in the form of a bill payment, but the transaction is still sitting in the register, and I still have to like go in and manually match it.
no, it's not a bank feed. So this is a true integration. It's not a bank feed. It's not a bill. It's actually an expense. So we'll create a credit card liability account called Ramp Card within
Okay.
your QuickBooks, and basically the pay will be the vendor, the payment date, category description, even the receipt, the attachment receipt will sync over from Ramp into QuickBooks, pretty much with the click of a button. So this is fully coded credit card charge with any
Okay.
classes, customers, dimensions that you might be coding these expenses to.
So it's all coming through as an expense, and really the only transaction that comes through would be the credit card payment at the end of the month, and that's what you would just sync and match over.
Yeah, do you have a hard stop at 9:30? I mean,
I do not. No.
okay. What I can do is I can actually show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think familiar. I think with this type of integration, the only thing is just making sure it reconciles and ties out. Do you guys have anything that kind of help identify differences or just like help with that process? I mean, I know there's some work involved on the QuickBooks side from the user, but just saying, hey, we have a $50,000 credit bill from Ramp and we need to tie that back to $50,000 of expenses. The hope is that 50,000 of expenses went into QuickBooks from Ramp, but what happens if it doesn't?
We're actually working on that right now. There's something that's going live in Q1. So let me get some updates on that. But in terms of the accounting sync, like you'll see all of the transactions on a dashboard. And then obviously you'll have the credit card liability account. So it doesn't actually hit the GL until you click sync. So any outstanding charges that don't match, what's been incurred on the credit card GL will be in ramp, and then you can push them over. So you just would have to make sure that all of those charges are pushed over.
Can you also make it an automatic sync or does it have to be a physical push sync?
It does have to be a physical push sync, but here's what I'll say. You can basically select all, and because we don't want to push things automatically to your GL without
Yeah,
implementing.
no, I get that. Yeah. I think like if you think about a new user, probably skeptical if it works, right? And I would want to make it to where I'm visually looking at all the syncing and making sure it works for at least the first couple months. And then
Yeah,
after that, if there's trust built that I know it works, me personally, I would rather just have it sync and then be able to review it, at the end of the month on the
yeah.
P&L.
Um, I mean, Mundo, we could sign you up for a ramp free account, and you could test it tomorrow if you wanted to.
Okay.
But basically
I
this.
like the sales pitch right there.
um, but basically there's a couple of things here as well. There is a mobile app similar to a Divvy, where people can see their cards and their charges and anything that's out of policy. But this is what the SMS actually looks like. So
And is there like a credit, assignment to each user, that kind of stuff?
yes, yep, we
Okay.
can set limits individual to the user. We can block merchants and categories. We can make it if we want a card that is only for the Home Depot or only for that one software subscription. We can create that virtual card or physical card.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But for the user, basically, this is what their process would look like is just them swiping their card, getting a text from Ramp, and then taking a picture of the receipt. Then Ramp matches, ties out, reconciles the receipt to the
Wait,
transaction.
real quick.
Yeah.
So we sign a user up, we put in their phone number, and so when a charge occurs on that card with that user, they're getting a preemptive text of like, "Hey, you had this charge. Please let us know, with the picture." That's that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then Ramp either
Although
match.
that receipt is not the greatest, but that is something that I would typically see.
We got worse receipts here.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. The reason
That's
why we're,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. I'd say like Ramp, if there's one thing that we do extremely well is matching receipts. It's the OCR technology behind it.
Holy cow, man. Yeah, I've played around with OCR technology. It's really difficult. It's definitely hard to use. So that's pretty crazy how far technology's come.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also because of, us being the corporate card, we can use that Visa data and then the OCR data and match them up. So we'll either tell the user, yes, this is a valid receipt, we were able to match it, or no, we weren't able to match it, take another picture of it. But as you can see, these receipts are pretty difficult. So 98% of receipts get matched. today.
Oh, I like that. So you can put in a memo to pull in the notes from the user, but at the same time on the back end, the accountant can make sure it's coded to the right GL.
Exactly. And then we'll do all the automation as well based on the merchant and category. So your accounting person can just, if they're coding to any fields like jobs or anything that isn't related to the actual merchant data, they can do that and then basically push into QuickBooks throughout the month, once a day, once a week, whenever they want to.
So given that you came from Amex, what is the carrot to get users to switch over from Amex? Because as you know, they have, pretty good rewards. So we have an Amex card that our owner uses for, and he accumulates a ton of points and rewards and stuff like that.
I won't say that Amex rewards are obviously nice. I mean, we're competing in a market where, you know, um, it's efficiency over rewards. So that is an active choice that companies make, and sometimes they don't make that choice. I mean, I'll be
Yeah.
candid with you. I've had many folks that no matter what you do, you know, there's no way we're getting rid of those points. I mean, Ramp does have a
That's also because they're not the ones dealing with the bookkeeping.
That's right. That's right. So it's usually the financial leadership that pushes the value
Yeah.
internally and then sort of gets that across the line. But what I'll say is, this is an unsecured line of credit. There's no personal guarantee or credit checks. So you can keep the Amex open, all of the intangibles, the lounges, the benefits. You can keep the Amex card open and have access to pretty much everything that Amex offers. That's sort of like my workaround is that, hey, keep the Amex, use the lounges. Maybe the CEO keeps the Amex and, you know, gets rewards. But for everyone else in the company, all of the operational spend, all of the AP spend and everything else, vendor related and employee related, that's where we would move them onto the ramp card.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to be working out of two systems, so it's ideal to have them all in one with ramp. But that is a possibility if really, there's no budgeting off the Amex. What I'll say also is that ramp rewards can be redeemed. So we have partnerships with One World United, so we can actually turn the cash back into points. Um, and typically for Amex, the points, if you convert them to cash, it's 0.5% cash back. If you convert the points to cash, if you convert the points for travel, it's 1.2. So ramp is sitting at one. It's somewhere in the middle, but on the higher end
So you're saying just flat 1% cash back pretty much.
on everything you spend. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said quick side note, you said you're out of New York, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is there anyone left there? Like, are you one of the only last people in the state? Like, I feel like New York has done everything in their power to like force people to leave.
That's true. I think people left voluntarily after the Yankees and how bad the Jets and Giants are this year, but
Oh, I don't know. It's a lot deeper than that, man. It's everything I've seen, it's like it is not a good place to live, but it's good to
yeah.
know that there's still people out there in New York.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about moving somewhere warmer soon. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Um,
No, that all looks pretty cool. I like that.
um, so here's what I can do also, Mundo, for you. This is what the platform looks like from an admin perspective. So the basically what you're looking at here is ramp from an admin perspective. So this is pretty much everything: corporate cards, reporting, you know, um, spend, accounting, paying bills, and we'll go through everything in depth. But what we start as is the expenses tab. So you'll be able to see all of your expenses and we will underwrite the business for a total credit limit. So basically that's in the form of a 10 to 15-minute application. Sorry, I'm getting kicked out by my vice president of finance, which I should probably not mess with. Um, my apologies.
No, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So what you're looking at here is a total business limit that we would assign for the entire company. It's usually by a 10 to 15-minute application. The limits are determined primarily based on the cash that you hold in your bank. So it's typically similar to Divvy. It's around 10 to 30% of the cash balances that you hold. If we look at
Okay.
financials, we can actually give you a fixed limit that doesn't change based on any cash balances. I think you were spending around $150,000 per month, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, somewhere. It's probably a lot more than that actually, but that's generally, I think that's a decent number to use.
Yeah. Um, and is that you said there's no spend on the Divvy card today, right? Is it all on Amex?
No, there's still some spend on the Divvy card. I mean, usually we primarily it's used as a backup, when because Amex isn't accepted everywhere. So we use that as a backup, and then every now and then we'll use it. But I'd say a large majority of spend is on Amex right now, as
Yeah.
far as credit cards. We do have a couple other credit cards that we did for just some reward promotion stuff, but yeah, most of it's on traditional credit cards.
Okay, got it. And I guess how many cards are out there, if you don't mind me asking?
We probably got 6 or 7, I'd say.
Okay. So are you going through the statements for each and reconciling, or is that someone else on your team?
Unfortunately, yeah, not me, but yeah, we're on our team. Yep, correct.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's going to be a good plus is that, with ramp we give you a lot more granular data over what's happening. So you can see in real time the current balance, available cash back, next payment date, the cash back accumulates in real time. And you're able to see the exact merchant name. So, when Amex, your team is probably looking at the statements and seeing like United Airlines 565 or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Ramp cleans it up for them, tells them exactly who spent and where. And the charge, is it cleared? Is it approved? Are there any flags, right? Did they violate any company policies?
So give me an example of what company policies would be that could be violated.
There's a lot. I think the biggest example is probably going to be receipts that don't match, right? When we're not able to match the receipt, or if the
Uh,
receipt's invalid. We can also do weekend spending, people spending on the weekends, alcohol, over tipping, right? If somebody tips above 20% on a corporate card at a restaurant.
Wait, so if you put like, hey, we don't want anyone spending money on alcohol, and they submit a receipt and it says, Texas margarita on there,
We'll catch it.
is it gonna pick that up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow,
Hmm.
that's crazy.
Yeah, even if they're at like a Buffalo Wild Wings and get a beer, we'll pick it up. So those will come
Wow,
in here in the flag transactions tab.
that's wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And again, this is sort of the idea that ties back to ramp is that we want to monitor every dollar that leaves the door, because ultimately the whole purpose of this, Mundo, is that we spend less money, spend less time. Um, and if we want, we could actually request repayment from the employee if it's really an inappropriate charge. So we have the ability to request repayment directly within ramp.
Wow.
And for your reimbursement process, you know, you can do reimbursements through ramp if you'd like. And we will basically, once it's approved, we can send a 2-day ACH back to your employee's bank account directly. But for them, it's really going to be easy to say, what merchant did they spend on? How much did they spend? or they can drop a receipt and it'll automatically create a reimbursement for them. So a couple options for you there. So reimbursements, see any pending reimbursements. We can do mileage as well. So we can track with GPS mileage from A to B. Might be useful for truck drivers or whoever else.
Cool.
And then also travel. So if you guys are ever traveling, you can book travel directly through Ramp.
Yeah, Divvy has they have a travel component to it, but it's like so grossly overpriced that it's just not even
Yeah,
feasible to use.
yeah. Everything you're seeing here is free, but there is a paid version. But you know, based on what you've told me so far, I don't think you'd need it. I'm happy to tell you the differences, but I think, for your purposes, QuickBooks Online, it's a free integration. Um, Everything that you're seeing here, I'll tell you if there's anything that there is like paid, but
Okay.
everything here is free so far. Yeah.
Cool.
Managing vendors. So we can manage all of your vendors, whether they're getting paid through corporate card, through ACH, through check, or wire. So we can click into a vendor. We can see who's the vendor owner, who created the vendor. We can even do the 1099s as well. So if you spend through Ramp Bill Pay with those vendors, at the end of the year, we can basically pull a report and tell you, hey, which ones are 1099able or not. And if you have contracts associated with those vendors, we'll tell you when they start and end. And we can even remind you of upcoming renewals so you don't get opted into renewals. For example, if this is Airbnb, we can store pretty much everything there is to store: bills, purchase orders, card spend, any documentation, tax information, how they like to get paid. We have a vendor portal as well where they can enter in their payment information and get paid directly and securely through Ramp.
What would be the custom fields?
Custom fields, like an example is, if you track if they're compliant with your SSO provider, that's an example of a custom field, but it can really be anything. Yeah. So upcoming renewals, and then also, Mundo, we're a credit card company, so we definitely
Interesting.
want, yeah, we want, we obviously have an incentive for you to move everything to card. So if we find that there's a vendor that we think you could switch to credit card without getting charged a fee, then those will be listed here. So because you're centralizing all of these vendors, we are also analyzing your vendors to see which ones will take credit card on the back end.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So if we want a new vendor, we can push vendors into QuickBooks from Ramp. So if there's a vendor that isn't in QuickBooks, we can create them from Ramp, but also with that integration, we will pull up all of your vendors from QuickBooks. So as you can see here, you have all of your vendors listed from QuickBooks. Prevents duplicates as well. So we can basically map the vendor to a brand new QuickBooks vendor and push it brand new. And you can say who the vendor contact is, how they like to be paid. If we already have their ACH, wire, or check by mail details, these are all, or sorry, ACH and check are free. So ACH, pretty much 2 to 3 business days, they get to your vendor. We will draft it from your bank account, send it to your vendor, and then we can even cut the check and send it to your vendor. It's typically 4 to 7 business days.
And that's within the free tier that you can use.
Yeah, within the free. Um, One thing, and this is for the free and the paid, domestic wire is $15 per domestic wire. We can also do international wire. That's $20 per international wire.
Cool.
So if we have the payment details, we can enter them in, or we can just be lazy and say, hey, I just want the vendor to fill this out. And we can do the same thing for W-9s. Hey, I want the vendor to fill this out. So the vendor will receive a thing saying, hey, Mundo's asking you, or asking you to enter in your W-9 and payment details. And then from an
Gotcha.
accounting, yeah, from an accounting perspective, we can pre-code the vendor. So any bills that come in that we identify from this vendor can have the same line item coding into QuickBooks.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's the vendors. Once we have the vendor set up, we have the ability to pay bills. But before that, I want to also show you how we work with the cards. So once we have all of our users set up in the system, we can start assigning people cards. Physical cards, typically 2 to 3 business days to arrive. We can ship them to the office, or the user can enter in their own address if you want them to. We're allowed to have one physical card per employee. Virtual
Okay.
cards, we can have as many as we want. So there's no cap on the number of virtual cards we can have. So for your software, for your advertising, right? Let's say we just entered a contract with, let's say you upgrade your ERP and you entered a contract with Sage. And Sage says, yeah, our contract is for $30,000. So you create the hard limit, right? You can't charge us more than what we agree to. And we can have these daily, weekly, monthly, maybe the Sage subscription is once a year.
Wow.
We can also say, we can drill down on this and say, hey, this Sage contract starts on Jan 31st. That's when this card is going to start. And also, I don't want a renewal by any means. So in Jan 26, I'm just going to block any payment from going through. We can even drill down and say like, okay, hey, the only thing that's allowed on this card is going to be software. So we can't go to McDonald's with the Sage card. We can even go down to the merchant itself. All right, it's not there, but it would populate if this was a real account. But I mean, for anybody that's on the field, truck, whatever it might be, you can say, hey, this is David's card. Maybe David gets $1,000 one time to go to a conference. We can set the starting and ending dates. And we can say, David, buddy, you're one of our best salespeople, but like no gambling by any means on this card, and can't right? So these are restrictions that we can have. Also, if we want to go down to the merchant and say, hey, the Home Depot, then this is only a Home Depot card now. We can also block merchants company-wide. So if we don't want anybody spending on Airbnb, we can have that globally for the whole company.
So how would someone use a virtual card at Home Depot?
They could just tap to pay.
Okay. So
So
like Apple
basically,
Pay.
yeah, think about the virtual cards like the budgets. So somebody has a physical card. There's no power. The physical card doesn't have any power until you give them money. So this is how you give them money. So once you give them money, they can swipe with their physical card and it'll be pulling from this virtual card budget.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool. And then we can require approvals if we want approval workflows within Ramp, like if we want managers to be approving. But we can also say, coding rules. So if we already know this person's department, if we already know the vendor, like remember that Sage Intact example,
Yeah.
we can pre-code the card so that when the charge comes in, it's already coded. So we can code to the vendor or category or department. So now when David swipes his card, the charge comes in already coded to department.
Cool.
Yeah. And then from here, like we have the ability to monitor. All of these cards will come in. We can lock them if we want. We can edit them. We can flip and see the card details. We can share them with other people. We can reassign them. Point is that they're very flexible and lightweight. There's no need to call us for a new card, right? You could do it all directly within Ramp. So you can order a physical card, have it come in to the office in 2 days.
Nice.
Yeah. So we have the cards. Let's talk a little bit about paying bills. Everything I talked about is free so far. Um, and again, so we can have expense policies if we want to, basically requiring people to submit receipts. And we're about to come into something that is a paid feature, but I'll show you and you can determine whether it's something that you would want. The expense requirements, this is the expense policy. So this is the expense policy for the company or for the individual. You talked about, the low adoption rate and how people aren't always compliant. This is really where Ramp comes into play and can sort of play bad cop if you wanted to. So you can say, if somebody swipes on the card and the amount is more than $75, then I need a receipt. I need the memo, which would be that text line,
Mm-hmm.
the receipt, and I need you to code it. Or you might not want them to code it, right? But you need the receipt. What we can also say is, hey, if you don't give me my receipt and my memo, we're making it so easy for you, you can just do it on your phone. Then your card locks after 7 days of not having those items turned in.
And what does that look like as far as a paid feature?
For having this, it's $12 per user per month.
Okay.
There is also a platform cost, which is about $5,000 per year.
Wow. Okay. So you guys put a
There's a
lot into that.
Yeah. Well, it's not just this feature. I'd say like it's also for more of our like Sage Intact integration, NetSuite integration, procurement, all things that I don't know initially, correct me if I'm wrong, Mundo, but you might need down the line, but I don't think you would need right now. But
Yeah,
this
correct. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I don't think we'll need that to switch anytime soon. I mean, a lot of people switch from QuickBooks to some of more, I guess what you'll call mid-level, enterprise level, but I think a lot of it is they don't necessarily know how to use QuickBooks to comply with GAAP, so they just switch. Yeah,
right.
I know how to use it pretty well and still comply with GAAP. So we've seemed to be able to scale with it pretty easily over the years.
Yeah. Um that's great. Yeah. Makes my life easier because I get to sell you something that's free. Um but yeah, so
I
essentially,
do like this though. That is pretty cool.
yeah. And then you were talking a little bit about the policies. If we're going to give people cards, then we can basically make it so that, itemized receipts might be required, gaming, cigarettes, politics, alcohol, tipping above 20%, weekend spending. These are all examples of things we can do on the free version. These are on the plus version.
Nice.
So pretty sure we can get all the policies we need on the free version. Um, and yeah, in terms of integrations, you're going to like some of these as well. So anything that comes in through email, any receipt that comes in through email, we can basically capture it automatically through this Gmail integration.
So how would it know that it's a receipt
Yeah, great question.
specifically for Ramp?
Yeah, great question. So it would only know it's a receipt if the purchase is made on a Ramp card. Because with the Ramp, if you make a purchase on the Ramp card online, for example, then, let's say it's yeah, I can show you a quick example. Um, um, let's see. Um, oh man, this is hard to find. Yes, my Wi-Fi receipt. So I was going to a conference and I purchased Wi-Fi on the flight with my ramp card. And basically all I had to do was tell it to send the receipt to my email. You know those iPads where they, ask you for your email?
Yeah.
Um, Anything that asks for a company email, basically I swipe for the Wi-Fi, 4:57 p.m. 4 minutes later, Ramp goes in and says, "Hey Dan, we got it. We automatically match the receipt."
Wait, so what would you put in as the email for that receipt, I guess?
I would just tell the merchant to send it to my company inbox. And from the company inbox, Ramp pulls the receipt, PDFs it, and puts it on the platform.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
So this receipt that American Airlines sent me, Ramp grabbed it and basically pulled it in. So think about any digital transaction that gives you some form of e-receipt. That's what that integration would capture.
Gotcha. So if we had Amazon charges, it would all, Amazon, you would get a receipt, right? It would go to your email and then it would capture it there.
Pretty much, yeah. Are
Okay.
you guys using Amazon Business?
I believe so. I know we're using Amazon quite a bit. I just can't recall. I think we probably have an Amazon business account set up.
Yeah. Well, we have an Amazon Business integration, but
Okay.
either way it'll work with Amazon or Amazon Business. Amazon Business
Nice.
captures it automatically. And there's a couple of cool ones, Excel as well. So you can query your ramp data in Excel. So you can go into Excel and be like, hey, how much did we spend on, travel? And then Excel will be like, okay, pulling the data from ramp. It's actually one of our coolest integrations, I would say. So we can have
Wow.
Excel in ramp and basically any query, any data from ramp will pull into your Excel automatically. So you can track any type of spending from Excel to ramp.
Cool.
Yeah. Of course, there's a couple of other cool integrations. I won't bore you with the details, but I do want to also just mention that Ramp has the ability to pay bills as well. So we can create an AP inbox similar to like a bill.com where all of the invoices hit the AP inbox, then they hit Ramp, and then they can create a draft bill within QuickBooks as soon as it hits Ramp. So we can identify any duplicates. We can make sure anything that's in the inbox is truly a bill, and we can anything that you see with the lightning bolt, that means Ramp's OCR caught it. So the same OCR we're using for receipts, we're using for bills, and we break out each individual line item, and we can code
Nice.
each individual line item into QuickBooks. And when you want to, you can basically send out an ACH and pay that bill, or a check, or a wire, or a Ramp card. And for the Ramp card, we can do a single use Ramp card where we send it directly to the vendor, or we can pay with a card that we already have in the system.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, you're talking about paying a bill with leveraging your ramp credit. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And is there a processing fee for that?
No, unless the vendor charges you the fee. But there's
So
no
I
fee
could
for you
have
guys.
a payable owed to a vendor and I could issue an ACH that is pulling from my ramp available credit.
Oh, no, no, sorry. It would be pulling from your bank account. So you would choose which bank account you want to pay it from.
Gotcha. Okay. I was gonna say, man, that's a game changer if I could do that.
Although we do have a Ramp business account where you could store cash and actually earn 3% on any deposits you put in. Um, if you pay, if you store any money in the Ramp business account, any same day ACH is free. So that is
What's the charges on ACH payments?
um, there's no charge. So the ACH payment is 2 to 3 business days, but if you want it same day, it's $10, I believe.
Gotcha.
But if you do it through the Ramp business account, it's same day and it's free.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I got to wrap up soon.
Yeah.
Any other last things you want to bring up, or maybe let us know how we can find you if someone else is interested in getting started with Ramp?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious from your end. I mean, would you want to perhaps trial and see it for yourself in action?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get it signed up and we'll give it a test.
Okay, here's what I can do as a next step. Why don't I send you the ramp application? It's 10 to 15 minutes. There's no commitments. If you don't like the credit limit that we come back with, I can scratch your account the next day.
Gotcha.
Um,
Whatever you guys have in mind for that, just go ahead and double it. So that would be good with that.
what credit limit would for me, so just so I can go back to my risk team, what credit limit do you think would make most sense?
Honestly, I don't know. It really just depends on I'd say product usage. If we feel like it's accomplishing our goals, it does seem like there's going to be quite a bit of setup time to really leverage the automation. So, I mean, that's not an overnight process. Um, it could be a couple grand a month to start, but it could very quickly ramp up and, start to pull over from that Amex spend. It's just, I really don't know. So, I mean, whatever within reason that you guys come back with, it's fine.
Do you know your credit limit with Amex today?
We don't have one.
You don't have one. It's sort of like unlimited,
No, we
right?
can go buy
Yeah.
a house or whatever. Not that we're doing that on a corporate
Oh
card,
yeah, I
but
know. I know how the
uh,
Amex ones work. Yeah,
no,
that's
there's no limit. So
okay. Why don't I do this? I'll send you the application. Takes about 10 to 15 to complete. Why don't we set up another call so I can basically we can go over the limit. And then what we can do as well is I can tell you what the implementation looks like because we do have account management resources that help your team should you go with that route. Could we maybe put something tentative on for um, maybe early next week? Do you have some time on Monday?
uh, I'd say probably the back half of the week would be better.
Thursday?
Thursday, yeah, Thursday would be better.
Want to do 10 a.m. Eastern? Does that work?
Yep, that works.
Perfect. All right, I'll send you the application. Let me know if there's any questions on it. And yeah,
Cool. Yeah, and can you send me the recording for today?
yeah, I'll send you the recording.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, looking forward to getting started with you guys and hope I mean, for everything I've seen, it looks pretty cool, so I'm excited to use it.
Yeah, yeah, excited to continue the conversation. It's great to meet you.
All right. See you,
All right,
man.
take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.